Hey YouTube, Chris down in North Carolina. Got a 2008 Nissan Quest. We're going to try to change some front struts on this thing today. First step, take off this front cowl. Won't show you those steps. I'll link to a video. A guy shows you step by step how to do it. Very easy. So that's what we're going to do first. Taking the front cowl off. We got the thing out of there. Now look, we can see the top of the strut. There's one nut under here that's under this kind of shield. I think I'm going to try to take this shield off. It looks like it's maybe just 2 or 3 bolts. Looks like we got that on each side. Okay, there was a black plate right here on top of the strut. There's just two 10 millimeter bolts. Remove those and that plate just kind of pops up like this and you can remove it. Both sides, same way. Okay, got the car jacked up with jack stands. Use your jack stands, people. So we're going to disconnect this clip and take the brake wire off. We're going to take this out to take the ABS wire off. We're going to remove this nut for the sway bar link, and then we're going to take off these 2 nuts that actually hold the strut to this guy. Steering knuckle, I think it's called. I'm not sure of the terminology, but that's what we're going to do. This was 19 millimeters for these 2 for the nuts, and the actual bolt head was 17 millimeters. And up here for the sway bar link, 17 millimeters. These came out very simple with that electric impact and a breaker bar on this side. Popped right off, no problem. Same thing with this guy. This is kind of wedged in here now. I'm hoping when I unhook the strut up top, I can move the strut and pop this out. I don't want to bang on that because that might damage that. I don't know. And also when this came off, when I had everything completely unhooked, this whole thing is, nothing to hold it up. So everything's starting to come down. I don't know if I could just let it hang or not. So luckily I had a partner, my lovely wife, who grabbed this block for me while I held it, and we got the block underneath to give it some hold it up. So have a block, have something to like hold it up. Don't know if letting it free hang is going to damage anything, but why take the risk? So let's go up top and we'll unhook the bolts up top. We have a strut. Last step I did is I took off the 3 nuts on top. Those are 14 millimeter. I was able to use a regular 3-inch drive ratchet, little hand ratchet, to get those off. Those weren't too tough. One thing you want to make sure to do when you're taking those off, when the last one comes off, you want to be holding that strut with your other hand, because when that comes unhooked, it's going to want to come down. Mine, because that sway bar link was still attached, that kind of held it up, made it easy, but really it still wanted to come down. You got all those brake wires and stuff. You don't want to jimmy anything up, so be very careful taking that thing out of there. But all in all, getting this thing out, very painless, very easy. I'm going to use regular spring compressors that you can borrow from, I got them from Advanced Auto Parts. Okay, I've got my spring compressors set on each side. They're about halfway, or they're exact opposites on each side. Got the safety pins in. There's our loaded bomb. There's our old strut. There's our pieces off the strut. I tried to put them in order as they came off so I can rebuild it right. All in all, went okay. This feels very sturdy. With the locking pins. It is a bomb, a lot of tension in there, so be careful. I did loosen up the spring a little bit and then try it again. And I have some of this freeze-off stuff, lubricant and freeze-off stuff. That sat on there for about 2 or 3 minutes. A pair of vice grips to hold on to the shaft, onto the shaft of the old one, since it's the old one. You can do that, and it came off. So I'm going to try rebuilding or building the new one. Make sure your new strut is the right side. There's 2 different struts for the left and right side on this van, so make sure your new strut matches up with your old strut. I've done that, they match up, so let's rebuild this and see how it goes. Okay, on the old strut, there was a little piece of rubber around the bottom side here. We've transferred that over. There's a little notch, so there's only one way it can go. The end of the spring sits in there. One thing I've just noticed, I have new bearings, old bearing, new bearing. On the bearing, there's a little F here. I don't know if that means front, forward, or what, but there's an F there. It's also an F on this one. So luckily I was paying attention, and I have this plate, the bottom plate. See, it attaches to that. I could put it on the same way. Let me see if it'll go. Okay, it won't even fit. It won't even fit, I think, the other way. Let's see. Yeah, it won't fit. So looks like they put the F on there to help you, but there's only one way it fits. They're offset a little bit. It also comes, the new one comes with this ring, which I think, here's the old ring on the old one. So I'm going to replace that for the wheel, for the bearing. Put that in there and put it all together. See if we can get it back without taking an arm off. Okay, here's our new strut put together, and it took a while, and here's the $1 million tip from this video. Remember when I first was looking, the space here, up here, was widest. See, I'm looking at it with the mounting holes away from me. The mounting holes are pointing away. The space was widest right back here by me, kind of over on the right hand side. When I first put it back together, this wide spot was actually up front. It was up on the front side. And I remember seeing from some other YouTube video where a guy did that, and the car made like a popping noise or a rubbing noise or a popping noise or something. He had to take it all back apart again and fix it. Now, the spring was sitting up in this piece correctly. It was up, wedged up against the edge. You'll see where it's supposed to go. But this top metal piece, this one, I thought it was just kind of metal piece, didn't have to go in a certain way. But then when I looked and the opening was wrong, I said, something's wrong. And instead of just leaving it, thankfully I looked, and sure enough, on this big top metal piece it says out. And I wasn't sure what out meant, but I kind of spun it around, and I think out means like out towards the wheel, like where those mounting holes. The mounting holes are pointing this way, and this out is pointing that way. So that's very important. This top metal mounting piece, it says out on it. Make sure that piece, right where it says out, is lined up. Let's look down there. Lined up with those mounting holes. Actually, this one looks a hair bit off, but it's pointing out. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping that's right, and I'm hoping I don't have to tear this thing back out later. So very important tip. Watch for that. I think if I would have left it the other way, there's a good chance I would have run into problems and had to do this again. So it took me an extra half hour, 45 minutes of figuring it out, and I basically had to compress the spring and uncompress it 2 or 3 times to figure it out, but we got it. And that was it. For the top nut, here, I put the top nut on and then released some spring tension so that it was kind of holding the bearing in place. There was tension on the bearing. Then with the electric impact, bzz, shot it right down. That was no problem at all. So, and don't attempt this without some kind of impact tool on those spring compressors. You'll be there all day. The last little bit I had to use a hand tool because my socket wouldn't fit onto the spring compressor, and it was an extra 10 minutes just with a hand tool, and that was just for the last little bit. So if I had to compress and uncompress with hand tools, forget it. If you don't have an impact, take the spring somewhere and have them do the whole thing for you. Have them replace the spring onto the new strut. That's my 2 cents. Let's go put this back on the car. Well, looky here. Just noticed down at the bottom, the spring is not in the notch. Guess what we do a 5th time? We compress the spring. Okay, not so bad. I'm getting pretty good at compressing and uncompressing, so that only took literally about 2 or 3 minutes to compress it. Move that part over so it's sitting in there. That spot is right, so I think we're finally good to go. So a lot of learning experience on this one. The second one should go a lot quicker, and hopefully after you've watched this video, it'll go a lot quicker for you. So far, so good. Okay, new shock is in. 2 tips. You need to have a buddy, or I maybe could have done it, but it was a lot easier with a buddy. When I'm trying to lift this strut up into place getting the nuts on top screwed on and started. Very easy to have a buddy up there, my lovely wife, putting the nuts on there while I'm down here holding this heavy strut. The other thing I needed to do is I was able to get these two back into place, just kind of pulling up on the whole assembly here, get those into place. But I had to get the jack out to pump the whole, once I had these in place, to jack everything up so that I could get this sway bar link connector back on there, and also push everything up so I can tighten up the nuts up top. So have a buddy, that helps. You're going to need a jack anyway, so have your jack stands and have the jack so you can push that back up. All in all, very simple. The connectors back on very quick, or very simply. You got ABS over here to connect. It also connects in the back, right back here, and the brake with the clip. So I'm going to tighten all these nuts down, put the wheel back on, and do the other side, and probably do that in about half the time since I just learned all my mistakes. Just finished with the second tire. Everything went smooth, but let me show you a mistake I made. Look at my work area. Pretty dirty. What did I forget? That little guy on top of the strut. Some kind of little, not spacer, but something. It's very thin. Hopefully it doesn't do much because it's not on there. I'll have to find out if that was important. It wouldn't be a big deal to take it all back apart. But another good reason to keep your work area clean so you don't miss parts like that. Okay, once you got your struts back in, tires back on, the only thing we need to do is put those plates back on that cover up the top of the strut. Do that on both sides, and then we're going to follow Dial Too Fast's video number 4 to show us how to put the cowling back on. So I'll link to that down in the description. Alright, got the front cowl back on. Not too bad. So I'm done. Just got to clean up the tools. That job took me just a hair less than 5 hours. So basically 5 hours for me to do it. I would definitely get an impact wrench of some type. That will save you a ton. I wouldn't even want to do any of the job without an impact wrench. I got the one at Harbor Freight for $40. The electric one works beautifully for this job, so I can recommend that. What else? I probably wasted 30 to 45 minutes maybe on that first strut, trying to figure out, you know, how I put it together incorrectly, but luckily I figured it out before it's back on the car. Excellent to have a space where you put all your parts that you take off the car. Have that, because I can see no more parts. That means everything's back on the car. That's good. Try to keep your work area clean, so stuff like that little spacer thing right there, which I hope is not that important, so you don't forget stuff like that. Other than that, I would say the job was very smooth. Taking the front cowl off is actually very easy, thanks to Dial Too Fast and his excellent video. Thank you so much for that. And if you can, try to do, you know, if your Nissan Quest is getting up at about 100,000, you're going to take the cowl off anyway to do the spark plugs. If you're going to attempt that job, that's a much more difficult job. The struts themselves, piece of cake. The second strut, when I rebuilt that, I did that in less than 15 minutes. You know, it's like everything else. The first one's the learning one. After that, you got it. So I used Monroe struts. I haven't road tested yet. I'll have a little video, or I'll add on a little bit here. KYB brand was what all my internet research said KYB was the best, but I got the Monroes at a very good price. Don't plan on keeping the van but for a couple more years, so I think Monroe will probably do fine. Last but not least, I'm going to do the rear shocks probably next weekend. So I will put a link right up here once that video is there. That's it. Hope this was helpful. I will answer any questions. You got any questions for me? Put a comment down there and I'll answer them same day. Thanks, guys.